Every empire, every war, every legend has a backstory. Memories Legion fills in the quiet gaps of the Expanse and offers one last farewell to a universe that feels lived in. Memories Legion is technically the final entry in James S. A. Corey's sprawling Expanse series. Published in the year 2022, 1 year after Leviathan Falls, the last full-length novel, it is a collection of novellas and short stories set throughout the timeline of the entire series. Most of these novellas had already been published prior to 2022, hence the emphasis on technically being the last entry. In total, Memories Legion contains the following works: The Butcher of Anderson Station from 2011, Drive from 2012, Gods of Risk also from 2012, The Churn from 2014, The Vital Abyss from 2015, Strange Dogs from 2017, Oberon from 2019, and The Sins of Our Fathers from 2022, the latter being the only story written specifically for this collection. In broad strokes, Memories Legion is somewhat difficult to evaluate using typical semi-objective criteria, as the novellas span vastly different points in the overall Expanse timeline. The prequel stories, Drive, The Butcher of Anderson Station, and The Churn, adhere closely to hard science fiction principles and focus primarily on human-scale conflicts and systemic pressures. Later entries, particularly Strange Dogs and Oberon, lean more heavily into science fantasy due to the presence and influence of alien technology. That said, the scope of the narrative universe remains vast throughout, as these stories rely heavily on the world building established in the main novels. Fundamentally, the novellas serve to further flesh out an already rich and well-realized universe, adding texture and nuance to events, factions, and characters that readers may already be familiar with. In terms of originality and conceptual novelty, the novellas are naturally somewhat limited by their format. Due to length constraints, most of them focus on exploring a single compelling idea, if that, and in some cases, particularly those centered on character backstories, even that takes a back seat. Stories such as The Butcher of Anderson Station, The Churn, and Gods of Risk fall squarely into this category, prioritizing character development over conceptual expansion. Similarly, the number of characters featured in each novella is necessarily limited, often resulting in small ensembles or even tightly focused, near-solo narratives. Regarding reception, Memories Legion was nominated for the Locus Award for Best Collection in the year 2023, though it did not ultimately win. Popular reception, however, has been quite strong, with an aggregated rating of around 4.4 out of 5 stars, based on thousands of reviews across platforms such as Goodreads and Amazon. An impressive figure for a short story collection. Several of these novellas also served as source material for at least subplots in episode of the Expanse television series. At this point, a general spoiler warning is in order not only for Memories Legion itself, but for the Expanse series as a whole. You have been warned. Briefly and chronologically summarized, the novellas fit into the broader timeline as follows. Drive is a prequel set roughly 150 years before Leviathan Wakes, detailing Solomon Epstein's, maybe not the best name in retrospect, fatal test flight of the fusion drive that would revolutionize human expansion. The story contrasts his physical helplessness with flashbacks to his life on Mars, chronicling the invention that grants Mars its independence from Earth. The Churn is set in a dystopian, overcrowded Baltimore. This crime noir prequel explores the early life of Amos Burton. It introduces the concept of the Churn, a societal collapse in which established rules vanish and survival favors the ruthless. The Butcher of Anderson Station focuses on Fred Johnson during his time as a UN Marine colonel. A brutal raid on Anderson Station becomes the catalyst for his disillusionment and eventual defection to the OPA. Gods of Risks is set between Caliban's War and Abaddon's Gate, and this novella follows David Draper, Bobby Draper's nephew, as he becomes entangled in illegal drug manufacturing on Mars. It highlights the growing decay of Martian society as the terraforming dream begins to fade. The Vital Abyss is set between Abaddon's Gate and Cibola Burn, where this psychological thriller is told from the perspective of Dr. Paolo Cortázar, and it explores the moral detachment required to pursue scientific discovery at the expense of human ethics. Strange Dogs is set on Laconia between Babylon's Ashes and Persepolis Rising, and this novella leans into horror elements, introducing the alien repair drones that would later underpin Laconian immortality technology. Oberon takes place between Persepolis Rising and Tiamat's Wrath, where this political drama follows a Laconian governor attempting and failing to impose authoritarian control on the deeply corrupt and complex colony world of Oberon. And finally, The Sins of Our Fathers is kind of an epilogue set after Leviathan Falls and exclusive to this collection. It follows Philip Inaros living in exile, forced to confront the violent legacy he inherited from his father in a universe cut off from the Ring network. Some of these stories are inevitably more compelling than others, largely depending on personal preference. Whether one is particularly invested in a given character, setting, or theme. That said, what stands out is how unusually cohesive and well integrated these novellas are when compared to similar collections from other science fiction series. Collections such as Alistair Reynolds' Galactic North, Ian M. Banks' The State of the Art, or Kim Stanley Robinson's The Martians, plural S to avoid confusion with Andy Weir's The Martian, often include stories that feel disconnected, experimental to a fault, or uneven in quality. The Martians, at times, felt less like a curated collection and more like a dumping ground for every stray idea Robinson ever had, including, one suspects, even his grocery list. In refreshing contrast, Memories Legion remains consistently enjoyable and structurally connected to the main narrative of The Expanse. The only notable drawback is the question of reading order. Reading all novellas at the very end is arguably not ideal. A more satisfying approach would be to read the prequel stories after Leviathan Wakes, or even after Caliban's War, once the reader is sufficiently familiar with the universe. Ideally, the remaining novellas would be read in chronological order between the main novels, though this does require some logistical effort. As a reasonable compromise, one could read Drive, The Butcher of Anderson Station, The Churn, Gods of Risk and The Vital Abyss after Abaddon's Gate, and save Strange Dogs, Oberon and The Sins of Our Fathers as a thematic send-off after finishing Leviathan Falls. But ultimately the choice is yours. Overall, Memories Legion is a worthwhile addition for fans of The Expanse, offering additional context and depth to key characters and events. While it may not be essential reading, its strong integration with the main series makes it far more rewarding than many comparable short story collections in science fiction. If you liked this video, you may also enjoy the other reviews and content on my channel. Feel free to leave a comment if you want to discuss the novels or if you want to suggest other books that I should review in the future. Please consider upvoting and subscribing, it is much appreciated. Thank you for watching and until next time.